it's going to be fantastic.
It always is.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Welcome to we've done multiple episodes of our Workout Wednesday. However, we used to host them via Zoom. We're now actually broadcasting some of this show, particularly to our networks. And here's why. Workout Wednesday is a continuation of our Rev Shot show. And for those of you that have been following us for a while, we're actually going on episodes 49 and 50 of Rev Shots. And so as we host Rev Shots, we have amazing experts coming and talking with us about what they're seeing and hearing in the marketplace right now. So it gives you this opportunity to kind of eavesdrop in on conversations that other people are having, because quite frankly, if they're having it, other people are having it. So it's this great opportunity to learn from other people without, quite frankly, having to engage. It's amazing. So we started Workout Wednesday as a cascading effect from that discussion, meaning the internet is amazing, but what ends up happening is we go on there and next thing you know, an hour goes by and we didn't solve the problem or get the question answered that we were hoping to. So the problem we're trying to solve is exactly that. So Rev Shots and Workout Wednesday serve as your point in time fixes and answers for the questions that you have. So thank you for joining today. Joe is our very first Workout Wednesday guest, where we're going to be talking about a continuation from his appearance on Rev Shots, which we'll post again for everybody. But Joe is the leader of an organization called Amplify10, which serves to surface information, and that we've all been here, surface information for our revenue teams when they need it at the point of execution. So Joe, thank you for joining us on Workout Wednesday today. Let's spend a few minutes, introduce yourself, tell a little bit about Amplify10, and then we're going to get straight into the nitty-gritty of how are you seeing people now in 2025 be successful executing at the point of sale. So thank you for joining us, Joe.
Thank you, Dion. Great to see you as always.
Great to see you.
So as Dion mentioned, I help run a company called Amplify10. And what we're doing with Amplify10 is taking enablement, which historically, and we will still need to continue to enable and train folks in a classroom style.
Absolutely.
setting,
Yep.
where they receive a lecture, they watch a video, they read materials, they take tests, they get certified. We won't get away from that. Mm-hmm. However, technology is now available to help the reps, the revenue team, where they've had challenges before. And that's once they leave the classroom. Mm-hmm. Now we're at that point of execution. Now I've got to recall everything I learned in training and enablement and onboarding. But it's difficult. I've forgotten a lot of it. So what we're doing with Amplify10, we're taking enablement out of the classroom and putting it in their flow of work at the point of execution. So what does the rep need to know, or the person on the revenue team, in this situation that they're in? Here it is. So the technology speaking, I see where you're at. I've been there before. I know what you need. Here it is in the flow of work.
Yeah. I love that, Joe. And I saw your solution last year and thought it was amazing, because I agree with you. I think there's a time and a place for a learning stream, right? And we all know that. We remember that from school. I think though what I love what Amplify10 addresses and solves for is exactly that, is, you know what, I don't have time to remember or go through some of these other training iterations. I need information when I need it, and I need to know what I need to do, right? Sometimes we get in this mindset that like we're continually going through driver's ed, and we have to stop that, where I don't have time to go through another class. I don't have time to go through another this. So it's like, how do we go through this learning path and then almost have, I call it reels of reinforcement, because we live in a world where we literally, like, if I need an answer to something, I need to go get it, and I need to be able to move on with my day and not go down a rabbit hole that may or may not exist. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love your solution. I love the Amplify10 platform for that reason.
Yeah. And we're all, thank you. We've all become conditioned to expect and receive. And I know you've heard me say this, but the information that we need, when we need it, where we're at. Our 100%. Personal lives, our professional lives, we're spoiled now. I mean, because of technology, it's so much information is readily available to us, but it's not always right in front of us. We may have to look for it. And we've also become conditioned to expect and receive or desire bite-sized pieces of information. A seller, sales is difficult. There's a lot to keep track of, especially as you get into when you're selling a higher volume of products or services there's more complexity. It's tough to keep track of everything.
Yeah.
Everything is changing so fast. Our products are changing fast. So when I say our products or services, whatever it is you're selling, it's changing quickly. So is your competition. So are the industries. Like everything is changing so fast, it's difficult to keep track of. Yeah. And we're evolving to a point where I don't want the entire encyclopedia. Correct. I just take me to the page and the paragraph of information that I need. And the technology is now available to deliver that bite-sized piece of guidance that I need right now. Because eventually I need to know everything in the encyclopedia, if you will. But I don't need it right now. Yeah. I need this right now. Yeah. Technology is available to deliver, to see where you're at, know what you need, and give you just what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good, healthy tension to have between teams that are executing and folks that are trying to train, coach, and teach those teams. So as you're having all these conversations with organizations and leaders and enablement teams, what are maybe 2 or 3 ways you're seeing that what we're talking about come to life? This getting information to the teams when they need it, how they need it, all that good stuff. Like, how are you seeing how are you seeing teams be successful right
now? Well, it's a new approach. So, folks have to get the house in order a bit, and understand what their sales play is, because the technology needs to understand what do you want the person to be aware of in this situations. So you got to kind of get the house in order, establish what your sales process is, or if you're using a sales methodology, which most are using something that they want to make sure is enforced. Mm-hmm. And then, if you know what your approach is, what your methodology is, what you expect of your seller, then the technology can be aware of that. Then the technology can give proper guidance at that point of execution that you talked about. But I think a lot of it starts with getting the house in order. That doesn't mean you need to go through the entire museum of content and information and reread and rewrite everything. No, but you need to have a baseline understanding of certainly what your approach is. Yeah. But the technology is now available to give the contextual guidance that is needed. Because a lot of the sellers have the baseline understanding of how to sell. I need to identify the stakeholders. Do they have a timeline? Is there budget? What's important to them? Those things are all very important. And as sales athletes, we at least have that baseline and more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. So how are you seeing teams do that well? Right? Because to your point, there's a proliferation of information in this day and age. So how are you seeing teams do that well?
So it is an adjustment. And, there's a lot of trepidation with AI. Like a lot of people and companies know that they need to embrace and utilize AI somehow, but there's concern. Yes. But there's also, we're getting to the point where there's mandates from the top to say that at least have the awareness that AI can help with efficiency dramatically. Yes. And the age-old saying we've got to do more with less, it holds true. And we are expected to do more with less. Now is another one, now more than ever, but it's also true. Teams are getting smaller. Expectations are not getting lower. We have to figure out how to do more with less. And it's the companies that are ready to embrace AI and take a leap. It doesn't have to be a huge leap. It doesn't have to be super confusing. And as far as sales enablement goes, this is the direction that the industry is going. Using technology to deliver the contextual guidance that is needed. So it's the companies that are willing to make that small leap you don't have to jump over the Grand Canyon, but you do have to make a small leap and embrace this kind of change, because the efficiency gains are like exponential to what we can do on our own without this assistance from technology.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think a lot of the conversations too that I have with organizations is do we have a contextual setting framework? Because sometimes, to your point, and I do this too, right? We feel the sense of urgency and we dive in and we start executing, but we don't necessarily have the I call it the "you are here" dot. And so I think a lot of times we just start going, but we're not all going from like the same organizational playbook. And so that's what I see a lot of times is that's great. We're going to go and start doing all this stuff. What is it tying to? Are we tying these trainings and these exercises to a skill set? Are we tying these exercises and trainings to the skill set plus a KPI or metric that we want to drive and improve? And oh, by the way, that information is not made up by enablement. That information comes from the organization. And so it's this having to work together in a way of collaboration that maybe we haven't before.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? So can you kind of speak to that and maybe how you're seeing organizations collaborate well?
Well, to your point, all of these initiatives need to be tied to some corporate metric or KPI that at the top they said it is important to us to ... Yeah. So anything in enablement and training has to be tied back to those top corporate initiatives, or you're not going to get the support that you need to make these changes. And a lot of it is education as well. So much of this is so new that people aren't even aware of what is possible. Yeah. So they need to be educated on, because they may think they're fine. We're not using any technology. For example, if we go to the training or enablement, we put people in a classroom for a month, and that works for us. What they don't realize is that technology can improve upon that. A lot of companies just aren't aware yet of what is possible to complement that legacy approach that they've been using. Mm-hmm. Or maybe we don't need to spend a month in the classroom. Maybe we just need these 2 weeks. But again, it all needs to be tied back to the corporate initiatives that the executives have said are important to the company for this year. Yeah. Yeah. And then once you have an understanding and working through consultants and or technology vendors to understand what is possible, the art of possible, then once you have that comprehension of what is possible with enablement and training and doing more with less, and how do we use AI to ensure that our revenue teams are performing well at that point of execution, then you can start to formulate a strategy. Yeah. But a lot of it starts with what's even possible. A lot of people don't realize yet. So step one sometimes we're finding is education.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important point. And I know, I think the pushback or the concern from organizations is, I don't have time for that. I have a number ahead. And so I think, again, it's that healthy tension of I need go, 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 go. Like, again, I need point in time help for my team to make their number, right? And so it's how do you see folks balance that healthy tension?
Well, they've got to understand how how these types of solutions, because enablement is going this direction, like I said, it is going to the point where we will use technology to deliver the contextual guidance to augment what you, as somebody on the revenue team, already know, or make sure you don't forget to do this, this, and this. All right, see where you're at. You need, do this next. But I kind of lost my train of thought there. That is the direction it's going. And so sometimes people, they need that guidance from us to help understand, how do I even tackle this?
Yeah, it's really true for sure. And I think on a side note, I want to say too, that sometimes we have folks that, as much as you and I eat, sleep, breathe, and live technology, and I've been doing it for a very long time, or I'm going to say a long time, not very long.
You said very long.
I know. I think we forget that there is a realm in our population that is not tech savvy. It
Right.
doesn't mean it can't be, but there's this notion too of, I don't understand how this works. I need to understand how it works versus I know how it works. I'm ready to use it and go. So I think to your point of education, there's almost this baseline level setting of, have we identified the skills, qualitative and quantitatively, that we need from our team to be successful? And by the way, those skills should tie to the needs of our customers. Because if my customers are not that tech savvy, I need to make sure I'm hiring folks that can kind of fit into that lingo and that culture, versus if I'm selling cybersecurity into CISOs, I need to make sure I have the right folks as well. So I think there's this notion of start with the end in mind, which I think sometimes we forget, and layering that foundation of, here's the skill set I need, here's who I'm serving. Now I'm going to start building my enablement path, and then here's that evolution and iteration at the end of the day, and here's how I know it's working.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I see folks being successful with it, and tackling one thing at a time to kind of build that foundation if they need to either build it or enhance it.
Yeah, agreed. And it is that quantitative understanding of where this can take us, where this technology, where this solution can get us, because that's what they need. They need to understand, because the person that is going to approve this spend, whether it's on consulting, technology, all of the above, they need to understand what are the quantitative benefits that we will realize from this.
Right.
And they need help understanding that. But in part of that is, a big part of it is education.
Yeah.
What is even possible with this technology? And it, to your point, well, it is a lot of the people who will benefit from this, who are a little bit more apprehensive, are the folks that have been selling for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Who maybe, sometimes they're not as tech savvy. Sometimes they will resist change a little bit more. But so requires maybe a little bit more working with them. I mean, it's a change for everybody, but to understand how this is going to help you to be more productive. But as with any solution, if it's not intuitive, it's not going to be adopted. So that's part of anybody's role in this, whether it's a consultant, technology vendor, somebody who builds software custom. It's got to be intuitive and not require a training manual to use.
Ain't that the truth? Holy cow. I'm so happy you said that, because that is literally the world we live in. Yeah. And, to the point of training, regardless if you have enablement or not, I mean, all of us have worked in organizations where that didn't exist. My plea for everybody is, throw your new hires into the deep end of the pool and make them talk. Because as adults, we don't learn when we're being talked at. We go to a movie for that. And from a learning perspective, we need to go, tell me what your thoughts are. Tell me what your thoughts are. It's almost this push-pull, right? So can you say more about that? Sometimes we just have to go and just go at the end of the day and start learning and just dive in, listen to phone calls, give me your thoughts, give me your feedback. What does that look like for you? And let me take a step back. That was a little bit of a soapbox there, but Joe, again, what I like about Amplify10, right, is we don't necessarily need a content management system. We don't need any of that. Amplify10 sits there almost like an enterprise service bus to some extent, and connects to an organization's content repositories. And there's a whole lot of AI in the background that kind of catalogs that, right? So when you see folks in that context, right, whether it's Amplify10 producing this, but when they plug that in and they connect their content repositories and reps are using it, what is their feedback? How are they saying, to your point, this is helping me make my number? This is helping me be a better sales professional, to our point of just get in and go.
Right. Well, what did it, think of it this way? And the feedback that we get is that it's helping them to save a ton of time. So it helps save a ton of time, because otherwise they may not know what to do next. They may not have an answer to that question. They may not know how to do discovery. They may not know if we have the technical capability that this customer is inquiring about or has said is so important to them. But with this, now it's giving contextual guidance in their flow of work. So it helps with efficiency. It helps with ramping. So what are the types of problems that companies are trying to solve, or areas that they're looking to improve with a solution like this, something that's going to help with enablement? Well, it takes our revenue teams too long to ramp. They've got to be in the seat for a year before they're fully up to speed, 6 months, something that just is too long, because ramp time is costly, as we all know. Mistakes are being made, deals are being lost, smaller deals are being done, deals are being lost that could have been won just because they're not familiar. But with this, though, we're delivering to the seller the guidance that they need in their time of need without them having to look for it. So that's what Amplify does, and what others in this category are. We know they will be doing. You've got to. There's two elements to these solutions which are helping revenue teams dramatically. One is enabling them to pull information out. So by pulling it, it's a search. I have a question. Can we do this or that? Do we have this kind of customer? Are we SOC 2 certified? How do I do discovery? You're pulling information out. But the other use case that's delivering a ton of value is the one I mentioned earlier, where we're pushing information to the seller. They don't have to ask for anything. System sees where they're at, know what they need, and here it is. And it's bite size. I heard somebody refer to it as, or what people want these days. They want, and I don't use TikTok. I know something about a little bit about what it is. TikTok style training, just 100%. Bite size snippets of what you need right now. To scratch that itch.
I completely agree with you, right? There's the joke that goes around and that we talk about sometimes is the human attention span is about 8 seconds and the goldfish's is about 9. So we're really falling down on the food chain. But Joe, so a couple of things. So what I hear you saying is a solution like Amplify10, whether you go with Amplify10 or any other solution, but Amplify10 is solving for time and clarity.
Yeah. That's right. So, and you need that clarity to be able to, so I said that sales is difficult. Buying is also challenging. I'm not saying anything overly profound there. But buying is difficult because as somebody on the revenue team who works with customers, you need to understand, especially you need to understand your products and services and how it might be able to solve the challenges that your customer has. That buyer on the other side, though, they're working with 2, 3, 5, 6 vendors, all saying things that are similar. It all sounds very same. They've got a very difficult job as well. Buying is also challenging. So as far as the clarity that you mentioned, what a solution like this does is help the seller have clarity with what it is that the solutions that they're providing, products and or services, helps them understand the market as well, so that they can communicate that clarity and be a trusted advisor, a subject matter expert for that buyer, because that buyer, they have another responsibility in their organization. At this moment, they're tasked with buying something that will solve this problem, but their day-to-day role is not buying solutions for this kind of problem. Typically, it's some other function. So we need that clarity to help them through a difficult assignment that they have.
Yeah, I think that's so fair, Joe. And so many times we forget that. And we think if we build it, they will come. If we say what we were told to say via script, it'll be great. But I think when I talk with folks, one of the kind of tongue-in-cheek comments I make is, unless you're at McDonald's or some drive-through of some sort, nothing is that cut and dry. Nothing. Ever.
Yeah.
right? Or you're going to some Chick-fil-A and you're like, I need number one with a supersize, that's just not the world we live in, because to your point, buying and selling in most cases has gotten fairly complex, and for a variety of reasons. We won't go into the sociological components of it. But I think what I hear you saying a lot of times is, in order to be successful in an enablement capacity, regardless if you have that team or not, but in order to make our team successful, is what are our plays? We need to understand what are we saying, how are we saying it, and who are we saying it to? We need to understand our sales process. How are we talking with people and guiding them through a buying decision? We need to understand if we're going to implement a solution of any kind. We need to understand what it's helping us solve for. Do we need time back in our day? Do we need time for our reps? And do we need clarity on next steps? I think those are 4 really key things for people to think about today. And as well as I do, a lot of what we talk about, because you're a part of our executive group, is on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are we doing those things?
Right.
And give us that moment of awareness and self-reflection a little bit, because sometimes we think we're doing great.
Yeah.
And then stop and think about it and go, really? I don't know. Is this my own vanity metric, or do I actually have feedback from somebody? So
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And helping a buyer through their difficult journey, their difficult buying journey. I oftentimes will just sort of sum it up. They need 3 things. They need to understand, they need to know that you understand their problem. Do you understand my problem? Who like me have you solved it for before? Yep. And why are you better for me than the competition? Mm-hmm. That's how I can sum it up, but that's very difficult. There's a lot of moving parts and all that. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of clarity that is needed for the seller to be able to communicate all of those details, so that the buyer does understand and feels confident. Okay, you understand my problem. You've solved problems like this before for people or companies like me, and now I understand why this is the best solution for me.
Yeah.
So easy to describe, difficult to execute.
Yeah, there's a layer of thought process and motions and training, for lack of a better term, that need to go underneath that for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So parting thought for folks.
Well, I think a lot of people are headed this direction from the chatter that I hear out there, which is, okay, for the most part, we need to embrace technology to help us climb the mountain. Mm-hmm. But they need help understanding what is possible, and they need a clear path that they feel they can conquer with your assistance, because it can feel overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So have a goal in mind, but we can have milestones. We don't need to, another cliche, boil the ocean. Right. We can take steps towards getting there. Yeah.
I agree with you, Joe. And I think sometimes we forget that we can actually take micro steps to achieve our macro results, because we're so sometimes intent, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but we're so intent on moving quickly. And it's okay to have a sense of urgency, but we also, sometimes things take time. So
right. Yeah, take sprints. We can take sprints to get through that marathon, because it's a long race, but we can take sprints through each of these intervals, but it takes preparation.
I think that's the thing, right? And I love that too. So for everybody out there, I think to, kind of take what Joe and I were talking about today, figure out on a scale of 1 to 10, what is the one lever you can pull today? Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing across your programs, across your programs, your learning motions, what's working, what's not working? Once you kind of do a little bit of reflection, and it doesn't have to take long. For those of you who are like, oh no, I got to move fast, give yourself 30 minutes on your calendar for thinking time if you don't already. If you're an executive or would love to be an executive or consider yourself the CEO of your own life, I encourage you to have what we in our groups call a CEO hour, meaning you really kind of have to protect that time to give yourself time to think. So I encourage you to do some of those things. Make sure you're tuning in to our shows, our Rev Shots show that goes live Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific. We actually have a special edition this week in addition to our Friday show. And then, of course, join us for Workout Wednesdays, where our goal is to give you as many nuggets of wisdom that are tangible and practical and pragmatic, as much to give you some things to go from and solve problems. That's what we're after. We've got some amazing events on a last note that are coming up. We're doing a virtual summit on March 13th, I believe. And yes, it is March 13th that we're doing. And then we're also looking to do an in-person event in June in Phoenix. That's a workshop style event. So think if you've ever done an offsite with your team and wished you had some outside people there to give you some assistance, that event is going to be for you. More information to come. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.